Every so often a tent comes along that flips the backpacking four-season tent world on its head, and the NORTENT VARDE 1 could be just that next tent. And in this first look with the Verde 1, I'm going to show you a rain test. I'm going to show you a wind pitching test on top of a cliff top, and I'm going to show you kind of full specs right from the pack size through to the pitching sequence and all the internal features and dimensions. And I'm going to compare it to the NORTENT Vern 1 at the same time. It has to be said that this tent isn't mine to keep. It's just an early release, so there may be some differences, small differences with the final model. Right, let's have a look at some packed vital stats. There's not much to distinguish the Vern 1 and the Verde 1. The Vern is 40 centimeters. The Verde is identical, and the diameter of the Vern is 20 centimeters. The Verde is a tiny bit bigger at 21. Right, so weight-wise, the Vern on my scales here with the footprint is 2.94 kilos, and the Verde is 3.25. About 300 grams difference, which is what they said. Without the footprint but no pegs, that's 2.93 kilos, and the pegs, this is the lightweight set, weigh 183 grams. So either way, it's going to be around 3.3 kilos all up with pegs and footprint. Very little difference in the compact's pack size. So you've got this grab handle at the bottom with the reflective trim on, the usual nice badge. Now I think the big difference here is going to come in the weight of the poles, because these are really substantial. So the Verde poles are 927 grams, and of course there's one more pole in the Vern poles are 790 grams. Okay, so we've got 4 poles, 2 black, 2 blue, and as this is a prototype, remember, this one actually is labelled black, and of course on the production models that'll not be the case. Now this is interesting, not quite what I expected. I've placed the Vern 1 footprint over the top of the Verde, and it's pretty much identical, with just this point coming out a little bit more. The footprint attachment system is the new NORTENT way, where if you want to attach it to the tent, you just clip the inner and outer attachment points through the footprint elastic, and it's an effective, simple and potentially lighter solution than using the clip method. We've got the same Dyneema reinforcement at the bottom. Okay, there's 4 clips that meet near the front door here, and that these will all be to do with being able to release this front section. Okay, these are the lightest ones. They just weigh 8 grams each. They're 150 millimeters long. The medium ones are 16 grams, and the really big fatties are 24 grams. Now, I've used these quite a lot. I've not found them lacking, but for loose ground or heavy wind conditions, you probably want to have the beefier ones. Now, one of the clues that this is a storm-worthy tent is that you begin by staking it out with those 8 pegs, and that'll be held down to the ground now whilst you start to build it from the ground up. Straight away now you could get a guy line out and start to give it some stability from the ground up. It's like having an 8-pound salmon squirming away, the strength of that. And that's just a few centimetres high now. What you start to do is clip it from the ground upwards. At this point you would have been building the tent from the ground up, and I'd be absolutely confident about doing this in wind. Now, this is a lot easier than the QU Stormstar, which is an absolute B1 TCH to get those top clips on. Not too tight, just a gentle pull. You know, I can't be sure, but I think this is darker than the Vern one. Nice bit of tension on that. And it's very steep at the top. You could see how that would just shed the snow, and it's quite prow-like. That's the biggest panel, but it's still not massive. Right, let's stand back and have a little admire. Good bit of resistance there. Not even got these tight or very long. When this structure here is really firm. I mean, that's not double pole or anything, but I'm leaning on that with all my body weight. Tremendous. And this on the top, that's like giving me groin strain, to be honest. Designed in Norway and proudly built in China. I've got no problem with that. That's a nice big door, elasticated toggle, and just with one done up, that's held back, and 2 done up, that's going nowhere. With the door open, the inner tent is potentially vulnerable there, but there's an easy solution to that. And you can just zip the door partly down, making a little bit of a cowl, and you can still easily get in and out. So what I want to know is, could I climb into this vestibule soaking wet and easily get changed? Well, the answer is a confident yes. There's lots of height in here. Let's give you the measurements of the porch here. That is 64 centimetres deep, and the height 120, the whole height from the top to bottom, and the width of the whole vestibule is 2.5 metres. So I've got a massive amount of space in here. I mean, actually, I could sleep in here. It looks like what you could do is unclip the front of the vestibule there and push that back and make more space. Interesting. I could definitely sleep in here. I love this part, discovering new parts with a new tent. It's tremendous, and I'm glad to be sharing it with you. I've not heard any mention of seam sealing on this tent, so I think they've developed their stitching, and it's not required at all, to the best of my knowledge. And outside structure-wise, is the NORTENT reinforced structure that we're all familiar with this heavy-duty tape. If you wanted to, you could seam seal these. That would give you extra strength. If this was my tent, it's not, it's a loner, I would definitely consider doing that, just to give me some extra protection, and it's just good practice. And a nice thing about seam sealing is it gives you some intimacy with the tent and familiarity. So we know that this is a 30D outer. There's a reinforced, feels like a nylon strip in there. Seems to be keeping its shape pretty well. Just looking at the NORTENT website, $729 US, so $55 for the footprint, so that's $784. So the outer tent is 3,000mm hydrostatic head, and the floor is 10,000mm hydrostatic head. So we've got a double door here on the inner, and it's massive, absolutely enormous. That's you in first. And it just stuffs into a pocket there, or optionally, if you wanted to utilise that pocket, there's a couple of tie backs with elastic on, but the lazy amongst us, like me, will just stick it in there. There's going to be some differences on the production model compared to this pre-production model. I think they're going to be making this a little higher somewhere, and these pockets aren't going to be quite the same. I suspect this middle pocket isn't going to be there, but these really useful upper pockets where you could slip your head torch or your phone where it's up out the way, your car keys, whatever you like. There's another tab there for a lantern. So I think I'll put up now what the Vern 1 internal dimensions are. Now the Verde here is 110 centimeters wide. The height is 1 meter, that's absolutely fantastic. And then the length, 230. Now NORTENT say this is 240 long, I make it 230. They do say it's 1 meter high, and we agree on that. And they've said it's 105 across, and I think it's more than that. I've got it as 110, so we've gained on the width and lost a little bit on the length. Now that's me laying down. I'm 185 centimeters. Suffice to say, I've got bags of room, and there'll be plenty of space in here for a full-size mat, and for me to get the dog at the side here, and space for some gear top and bottom. This porch is absolutely vast. You know, I could cook under shelter here, peer out, and be lovely and airy. And I've got a QU Stormstar, and lots of people say, wow, what about the QU Stormstar? But I find it very porthole-like and quite difficult to access in and out. This is just so lovely and big and open. Makes it feel a much nicer place to be, where you can kind of like look out and take in the view sort of thing. I think this gives a much more sheltered area compared to the Vern. I like it. So yeah, it's a nice place to be. I would love to have one. Like I say, this is just a loner, but more of that to come. So I think I'm going to leave it out now overnight, and because it's forecast really heavy rain, and we'll come back and have a look. It's the next morning. It's been raining steadily for several hours. Let's have a little look what's going on with the Verde. Not much sign of fabric droopage there. So let's check it's all dry inside. Yeah, so far so good. All completely dry up around here. Let's have a little look on the top here. Yeah, that's fine. So in these still conditions this morning, completely dry. I've been having a good old look at the quality, and even though this is a pre-production model, everything's perfect on it. Finish wise, not a stitch showing, not a loose thread out of place. Just check inside. Yeah, all good. So still conditions rain test passed. Oh geez, it's just been like a thunderstorm. Absolutely bleating it down. Super heavy. Whoa, let's get inside. Let's have a look how much I can get these vents open without the rain coming in. Yeah, pretty wide. It's fine. Still remaining completely dry in here. Of course, something I forgot to mention, for the ventilation here, we've got a complete double door. The opportunity to make it solid or totally mesh. Okay, rain test over, but I've decided not to be lazy, and I'll get the NORTENT Verne 1 up and we can make a bit of comparison between the two. Now, the first thing I've noticed is the Verde stands up better in its pole sleeves. The Verne 1's a little bit floppier. Same principle of pitching from the ground up, but I dare say the Verne 1 with less poles and its slightly simpler construction is probably a little bit quicker to pitch. It's a while since I've used this lovely tent. So, what immediate differences can you see between the two, other than the number of poles? I would suggest it's the overall profile shape. This is a steeper, higher dome, and the Verne is more of a long and low kind of look to it. Now, despite this having the new 9.5mm 7001 poles, the 9.6 on the Verde still looks substantially bigger. If you look at strength along the top here, this is still really good actually, but the Verde has it. That's very good. The difference is here we've got one vent this side and one kind of flap vent here. So venting around the doors, the Verde is better, but of course the Verne has its end vents here. And if we just compare porch sizes with the Verne, this is okay, but my shoulders are against it here. Plenty of space in there, but with the Verde, this is significantly different. Now I've got loads of space to move around in here, and we start to see where the weight difference is coming in with these kind of sizes. So obviously a taller tent, more space, significantly more vestibule space. Going to give you some quick inner dimensions first. No, same depth, 110, but the Varde's got that kind of like longer bit across the bottom. And what did we say the Verde was inside? 230, wasn't it? Well, I've got the Verne at 235 there, so very slightly longer, but this feels much lower. I had the Verde at 1 metre and the Verne a generous 92. So for one, this is still a really spacious tent. It's a great place to be. There's plenty of height. When I've been in it with the dog, I haven't struggled at all. It's got a great pocket arrangement all over the place. It's a wonderful tent. I've been in right good storms in it, and I've felt safe and protected, but it is a slightly smaller space than the Verde. And I would suggest that with just having a single pole in the middle here for kind of cooking and stuff, this is slightly less sheltered. But of course, when you open both doors of the Verne 1, you've got a very unobscured viewpoint perspective. Okay, let's get the Torv 7 mat up in here. Okay, here's the torv inside. Now, space isn't always about maximum width, maximum length and maximum height. We've got to take this foot end into account. Now, the torv is a generous mat, 198 long by 68 centimetres wide and 11 centimetres deep. And you can see here with the foot end of the Vern 1 being 55 centimetres wide, you have to have the mat somewhat centrally placed. Now that's fine, it fits just fine, and you've got a little bit of space at the top, a little bit of space at the bottom. But if you wanted to maximise, say, foot room, you'd have to have it shoved up, and it distorts the tent up inside there. Fits perfectly in that position there, almost like it was built for it, but won't slide up to the ends. Loads of generous space at the side there. And if I sit on top of the mat here, if I sit bolt upright, my head is touching the roof. But if I do the drink test, I can manage that just fine. So that's okay. Maybe I would like a little bit more space, but it's good. Let's have a look at the Verde. Right, it's a different story here because the foot end here is about 61 centimetres long down at the bottom in there. And that means that the mat will fit, even though it's 68, it'll fit right down to the bottom there, leaving a large space. So for a large mat like this, you've just got a little bit more play space. This space at the side is longer and deeper. And importantly, if you are lying here on a pillow with the inner tent sloping down much more steeply, you've got much more space for your face. So if you're on a pillow there, you can kind of sit up, whereas on the Vern, it shelves in just that little bit more. You know, you've just got that lollop room. If I sit on the mat here, and I go very upright, there's still a full handspan above my head. In winter, with space to move around, warm gear on, this is the one I'd want to be in, for sure. Now, I'm not going to cast any predictions about wind stability, anything like that. I think we need to see some more testing before that happens. But the amateur tent engineers amongst you will already be drawing your own conclusions. So put in the comments what you think. Right now, I wish I could see in the future to the questions that will appear in the comments. Dave, did you compare this? Dave, what do you think of this? But I've tried to preempt everything that I possibly can, and now it just remains to do some testing. I'll tell you what though, the Vern 1 has always been a beautiful, good looking tent, but the Verde, I think, has just got that little bit more. It's stunning. You know, I would even give it a 10 out of 10. The Vern with an 8.5 in terms of looks, but the Verde is just flipping gorgeous. When I've had it pitched out yesterday afternoon and overnight, I have found myself frequently looking out the window, having a little bit of an admire of it, and saying to my my wife and kids, "Oh, look at that out there! Look at that! Isn't that gorgeous?" But maybe not quite getting it the same as me, but you know what I mean. Now, in this review, it has to be pointed out that I've received no financial benefit from NORTENT. In fact, this is my old Vern 1 that they gave me, but this Verde is just on a loaner. I don't get to keep it, and they've given me no incentives, financial or otherwise, but they did give me a t-shirt, which I'm really pleased with. Stop press. Did I forget to mention that it can be double poled, just like many of the other NORTENTs? Now, that is going to have to wait for another time. And also, you've seen it before, I haven't yet mentioned the extended canopy front, but I'd like to leave that test. So you don't think I could finish this without showing this tent's party piece? So as far as I can see, you just unclip the front, unclipping the 4 tapes at the front, and then, hopefully in a controlled manner, up it goes. And now I've got a nice little canopy to sit under. So quite unique, and to give it a bit more stability, I would use the side guy lines here. Right, I've not got the end guys pegged out, but that's given that some stability now. It could still be suppressed by wind, but that's looking good. And I could sit here. I've got a really open vista. What do you think, honey? No, come and have a look. What do you think? There's going to be space for you, that's for sure. Like it? We're not camping tonight. We're just having a bit of fun. And if you wanted to get a little bit of shelter from the wind from one direction, you could partly close that door. And I would even suggest, I don't know if the manufacturers recommend this, but you could have that open one side and a kind of half flying canopy. You know what I'm going to do next? I can't resist. Right, I brought the Verde 1 up onto this cliff top where it's blowing a steady 15 and gusting just over 20 mile an hour. I've just put 3 guys out just to try, and it's sitting fine, just having a little tiny dance. So on very hard ground. Here's the cliff edge here. Over 20 now. It's not really a wind test, it's a good test for these pegs. I've just kind of thrown it up really, but it's doing well. Let's see. So since the Verde is a freestanding tent, I can pitch it out on this really hard ground with some confidence, and it's staying stable there, absolutely no problem. As you can see, it's been too windy for the drone, it just wouldn't fly in this, and it's rated for 25 mile an hour. But the tent's not bothered at all, but unfortunately the drone's taken one for the team.
say with some security, as regards wind pitching, this is going to be the easiest tent I've ever used.
So if you enjoy this, give us a like and comment below what you think of the tent.